Yeah, and we'll just make it very casual. This is going to be very informal, despite the video. So my name is Guy Roberts. I am a Boston University graduate, class of '94. I was an acting major, a BFA acting major. I am the artistic director of the Prague Shakespeare Company in Czech Republic, which is basically, for all intents and purposes, we are the professional English language theater of the Czech Republic. So everywhere in Europe every major city has an English language theater, and we are that. We are just about to start our 18th year, and our 12th year, where we've been partners with the Czech National Theater. We have our own small theater. It's a 140-seat little proscenium theater with a balcony, and that's where our offices are, and that's where we do our smaller shows. So, for example, tomorrow night, the Thanksgiving play by Lewis Fast Horse is playing. But our major productions are usually done in association with the Czech National Theater at the Estates Theater, where Mozart premiered Don Giovanni in 1787, and where John performed on stage as an actor this summer.
No pressure. I'm not a performer, by the way.
I thought you were great. And it's a very special thing. It's one of the most famous venues in all of Europe. It's really special. There's a little tiny plaque on the stage that only the actors can see that says Mozart stood here and conducted the Magic Flute. And we've done over 30 productions at that theater. We are also partners with the Czech Summer Shakespeare Festival at Prague Castle, which is all in Czech, but we provide them every year with an English language production. And that was started in cooperation with Václav Havel when the wall fell. Because Havel felt that all free democratic countries needed a Shakespeare festival. So that was something really cool. And I'm just curious, have any of you been to Prague before? You have. Okay, great. When did you go?
I actually went this summer.
Oh, you did? All right.
First time.
Just for fun or a training or something?
It was a big Europe trip, but the main goal was to visit my family that lives in Croatia.
Oh.
It's like a pit stop.
Oh, terrific. Well, you can attest that at night, so I want to just tell you a little bit about how I got to Prague, tell you a little bit about the company, and then I'm going to talk to you about our winter and summer training programs, which I will admit I'm completely biased, but I think they are the best in the world, and I'll tell you why. But since you've been to Prague, you can attest that Prague is incredibly beautiful at night. Old Town Square and Prague Castle, the way they're lit, it looks like something out of Disney World. It's unbelievable. And under communism, well, first of all, Prague is a really special place because both the Nazis and the communists really loved it, and they didn't bomb it. So when people come and do things with us, we always take them to dinner at a restaurant, for example, that's been there since 1499. So everything is intact, and there was only one bomb that fell by mistake in World War II. It was actually an Allied bomb because there was a storm and the American pilots thought Prague was Dresden and they dropped a bomb. But everything else is intact, so it's very beautiful. But under communism, it was incredibly dirty and not really pleasant. And one of the first things that Havel did was he went to his lighting designer friends in the theater and he said, share the beauty of Prague with the world. Let's light this, let's clean this city up and light it in such a way so at night we sparkle in all of Europe. So they did that. So people from the theater were the ones originally who created this look, but they couldn't pay for it. So then Mick Jagger and Bono stepped in and paid the first bill to light the city of Prague. So when you're there, whatever you think of U2 or the Rolling Stones, they did some good in Prague. But Prague and the Czech Republic has a very unique relationship with Shakespeare. Because under the Nazis and the communists, Shakespeare was still allowed. So you could perform Shakespeare, and you could perform Macbeth or Richard III or King Lear, and be making comments about the regime, but it was safe because it was Shakespeare. So because of that, Shakespeare is extremely well respected, and theater is incredibly important to the culture. When the wall started to fall in '89, the students were the first ones to go out, so people your age. They were the ones that marched, but they had marched before. And what happened on the second day is the actors and directors and major theater figures at the National Theater and Schwandovo and Na Zábradlí, these amazing Czech theaters, they opened the doors of the theater on the second day and they said, they turned all the house lights on and they said, we're not gonna play tonight. Tonight we're gonna have a discussion about the future of our country. And they had a discussion that then spilled over to a few very famous restaurants and cafes and bars. And after that, the movement was unstoppable and the wall fell. So theater is interwoven into the fabric of the identity of the country. And it's incredibly important. And one of the exciting things about the theater there is people dress up, even young people and kids. You'll never wear jeans to the theater usually, right? They'll dress up because it's important culturally. And the effect that has on people like you and me and John is that suddenly you're in a country where you don't have to be ashamed to say you want to do theater. You know, so when I first went to the Czech Republic, I was the artistic director of the Austin Shakespeare Festival in the city of Austin. And the city of Austin gave me a grant to go to Prague and direct a play with the idea that then I would return to Austin and I would share my vast European knowledge with the whole city. But on the second day in Prague, I had a very cliched experience, which many people have, and that experience was, fuck Texas, I want to live in Europe and I want to live in Prague. And because at that time, the Czech Republic didn't have a professional English language theater, I thought there was an opportunity to create an English language theater and make Shakespeare the core of the work. But I've commissioned new plays, we perform modern plays, we've done musicals, but Shakespeare is the core of what we do. And as I said, we're just about to start our 18th year. So I resigned my job in Austin and went to Prague and started the company. I think there are a lot of major cultural differences, first of all in general, about being in Europe versus theater in America, but also in the way Shakespeare is thought of as well. And you have to understand that for most of Europe, when Shakespeare is presented on stage, a political choice has been made before any person is usually hired to be a part of the show. And that political choice is the translation. So whether you're performing in German or Czech or French, someone has translated Shakespeare. And whether their intent is to be as faithful as possible, or to make it super modern, or to write something that feels old and slightly archaic, they're making a choice which ultimately is a political decision that has ramifications all the way through the production. If you want to have a very young, vibrant, modern feeling Shakespeare, you get that kind of translation, then you have that kind of design usually. You also then usually get a director with that kind of sensibility, and you get actors who have that kind of sensibility. If you want something a little more classical in nature, same thing. You get those designers, that director, those kind of actors. But the major difference is this issue of translation, because in our native English-speaking world, in the UK, Australia, Canada, and here, Shakespeare is primarily a theater of language. So generally, and I'm speaking in general terms, the actor is the focus because language is the focus. But when you have to approach Shakespeare through the lens of translation, other things become more important. Design, directorial, vision, these sorts of things. And language often takes a back seat to those sorts of things. And what we're trying to do in Prague, and we've been super successful at this at times and terribly unsuccessful at this at times, is to create a kind of theater that has, in a way, the best of both worlds. It has a strong design, directorial aesthetic, but there's also a lot of emphasis placed on the language and the actor. And because of the way we approach the work, our company, first of all, is made up of almost 100 artists from around the world who are part of our extended seasonal companies. And we have associate artists, people who've been with us for a long time. But they come from all over the world. So we have people from China and the Middle East and India and all across Europe and Canada, the UK, America. And I like to think of Shakespeare as the United Nations of humanity in a way. So I really encourage and want all the different voices and dialects. And we're not going for any kind of unified sort of RP, received pronunciation, Oxford kind of English, right? I want all those strange sounds because I believe that reflects what ultimately Shakespeare is, which is a reflection of who we are as a species on this planet. One of the things we've done is so we're going, I think, into our 11th year of our summer Shakespeare intensive. And I started it really for two main reasons. I have auditioned thousands of actors in London, New York, across the United States, and in Europe. And I noticed there was a trend. It started with actors, and now our program is for directors and designers and stage managers and anyone who loves Shakespeare and loves theater. But it started with the actors. And it started because I noticed even at the best drama schools, Juilliard and Yale and RADA, there seemed to be a kind of way of thinking about actor training, and I'm making some generalizations, but there seemed to be a way of thinking about actor training that was more focused on pleasing the teacher and being really great in your Wednesday afternoon acting class that didn't really have any relation to being amazing in a show. And there seemed to be, and I think this is in part because of the influence of film and TV, but there seemed to be a great emphasis placed on having an explosive, incredible acting moment, a great scene or a great monologue versus a great total performance. And I think that's because actors in some ways now are really trying to get that one amazing take that will live on camera. But what I noticed with some of the younger actors is they could give an amazing performance on a Friday night, but on the Sunday matinee it wasn't there, or sometimes even on the Saturday night it wasn't there. And I realized, I thought there was a disconnect between the training that was happening in the classroom and actually doing a show. And it's of course not this way everywhere. So some drama schools have a slight adjustment on it. But I wanted to have a training program for actors where when you take your voice class or your movement class or your fight class or your dance class or your clown class, you could work on, you said you're doing Romeo and Juliet, right? Yeah, so say you're playing Juliet, you could work on Juliet in all those classes. So your acting class is actually an extension of rehearsal. Rather than, you're playing Juliet, but then in acting class you're spending all your time working on Cressida, for example. Now, I also wanted to have the flexibility of a program that if you were sick of Juliet and you needed to work on Cressida to clear your mind, that was fine. But a lot of times I notice in drama schools, if someone's directing a play, they didn't want the students to work with anybody else or do anything that might influence their play. And I have an absolutely different philosophy. I think you work with as many people as possible, you explore as many options as possible, and then it will somehow synthesize and you will have a terrific performance. It's a bit like actors sometimes say, oh, I don't want to watch a film performance of someone else playing the same role because it'll influence me. But the great joy of being involved with Shakespeare as a theater is you're part of a sisterhood and brotherhood of people for hundreds of years who have done the same part. So when you play Juliet, you're, no matter where it is, in a small classroom or a giant theater, you are dealing with the exact same problems and issues that Judi Dench has, that all of these hundreds of other actors who've played Juliet, and that's an amazing thing to be a part of that tradition. So I think you should see every performance and let it fill you and inspire you, because even if you were doing your best, your absolute best, to imitate exactly Judi Dench's performance, you wouldn't be able to do it. You'll naturally make it yours in some way. The other reason I started the program was when I was at BU 500 years ago, we were not allowed to study really with anyone else, right? I couldn't go on a study abroad trip because the theater program at that time was very rigorous with cuts every semester, and they would kick you out if they didn't think you were good enough. And they really didn't want anyone messing with the BU method, you know. So consequently, I never got to do anything amazing. And also I was extremely poor. My family was very poor, and I was here as a dean's scholar. So I didn't really have the money to do anything. So I wanted to create a training program that was linked to production. The play's the thing. And I wanted to have something that involved travel and adventure and be as affordable as possible. So our program is expensive, but if you look at comparable programs around the world, it's priced under them. And we have one major difference. We are the only ones that do productions. All of the other, there are amazing places you could go study Shakespeare. But you'll spend a month or 3 weeks or however long it is, and you'll do the balcony scene, or you'll do a monologue. You won't do a show. In our programs, in the winter and summer, you do shows, because shows are what it's about, and I think you get it, which is why your society does shows, right? Shakespeare wrote for the theater. He didn't write for an English class. He never thought that his plays would be read and studied, right? He meant his work to be performed and be spoken. And that's the major difference with our program. The other thing that I think really distinguishes our training program is that all of our faculty are working professionals in the field, not just at universities. So there are many terrific teachers in drama schools and elsewhere, but sometimes they only work at the school and they're not really connected in the real world. But all of our faculty are working in the real world. People like John are so busy working, BU probably is getting a little annoyed at him, right? You know? And these faculty have connections and hiring authority. So if you're interested in pursuing a career in the theater in any way, they can be amazing contacts for you. Because once you're out of drama school or university and you want to do theater, well, you know, there's a lot of people that want to do plays. And it's really the people you know and your connections. That's the thing that's going to take you forward. And so last summer, for example, we had 136 students in our program. We performed, I think, 16 different we had 16 different productions and performances, and the faculty were part of it, but we had over 60 faculty members. So the student to faculty ratio is terrific, right? When you go to our program, it's called intensive for a reason. It's definitely a Shakespeare boot camp. So it's 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, half day on Saturdays and Sundays off. You eat, sleep, and shit Shakespeare. And that's the point of it, because your only job when you're there is to immerse yourself into Shakespeare and be the greatest Shakespearean you can possibly be. Whether you're a dramaturg or a designer, director, actor, stage manager. We're going to immerse you in that. So what would a normal day be like? Well, typically, and I'll just talk about actors, but I can also answer for designers and directors. But, excuse me, typically, you'll wake up in the morning, you'll have a voice class. Then you'll have a movement class, period dance, or maybe viewpoints, stage fighting, something like that. Then you'll have lunch, and then in the afternoon you would have a clown class, or an acting class, or another elective. And then in the evening you would have rehearsal. You rehearse 4 hours a day for the show. One of the other things that distinguishes our program is we offer electives. So there are core classes that everyone takes, but then you can specialize. So if you want more clown, or more stage combat, or Meisner technique, or Ivana Chubbuck, or self-tape, or scenic design, or costume design, or these kinds of things, you can specialize and focus in electives. You want more original practices? Great. You want to do more first folio classes? Fantastic. And so you have the option every day, usually, depending on the schedule, to then go to whatever elective course is being offered that week And there's always at least usually 4 to 6 options during the election period, the elective period. We also provide lunch and dinner on all training performance workshop days. So you don't have to think about anything. Basically, you're there to work, you take in food, you work more, you take more food in, you work, right? And what we've created is a kind of environment where the cool kids are the ones who bust their ass and who really love Shakespeare. So Prague is an amazing town, and everything is legal in Prague. Everything is legal. But if you want to go do that stuff, awesome, great. Have a great summer, but we're not the program for you. Because we're the program for people who really want to do a deep dive with some of the best Shakespeareans in the world. I'll talk about the summer, but the same is roughly the same thing with the winter. We have several Shakespeare experiences you can do. We have a 4-week program where you'll do 1 show. We have a 6-week program in Prague where you'll do 2 shows. After the 6-week program finishes, we take some of the shows on tour to Italy. So you get to tour to Genova and Venice. And we might also go to Bari next year. I'm still negotiating it, but there's a large Roman open-air amphitheater that we might play to. And the reason we do the tour is for Europeans and most Shakespeare companies around the world, touring is an essential part of your identity. I mean, we've toured to Egypt and the Middle East, we've toured to India, we've toured all across America and Europe, and touring is something you need to know to do. How do you deal with your Romeo and Juliet when you come to Venice and suddenly the theater is the size of this room? And the ground plans they sent you were maybe like 20 years old and they don't really work. Or what do you do when you're flying to Genova and 2 of the bags are lost and they have all your costumes and you have a show that night, right? I want to give you that experience so then when you encounter it later, it's not your first rodeo. And also, Italy's amazing. And so many of his plays were written in Italy. We also have a pre-intensive week before the Prague experience in Stratford-upon-Avon and London, which is curated by Professor Paul Prescott, who's one of the most well-regarded Shakespeareans in the world. When you're in Stratford, you will have lectures and discussions, for example, with Sir Stanley Wells, who is the most famous Shakespearean in the world. He's about 150 years old and still going strong. And also Paul Edmonston, who runs the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust. And you also see performance at the Royal Shakespeare Company and the Globe, and you'll have backstage tours. And so that first week in the UK is a complete immersion in the background of Shakespeare. There are classes, but there are no performance classes. It's all about the history and really taking in new place and all these Shakespeare experiences. So if you do our entire summer experience, your summer will start in Stratford, you'll go down to London, you'll go to Prague, and then you'll go south to the Mediterranean and Italy. And your journey will exactly mimic the journey of Shakespeare's plays. He started in Stratford, he went to London, played, closed the theaters, actors went on tour to Europe, they took his plays to Europe, starting in Germany and perhaps the Czech Republic with Robert Brown's company in 1619 and perhaps earlier, and then they went down to Italy. So you'll have a terrific, total Shakespeare experience in the summer. Our winter program, which we're about to do, which we're about to start, is similar, but it's a 3 or 4 week session, so it's even more compact. The 3-week session, you'll have you'll actually have 2 performance experiences. We're performing a midwinter night stream at the Estates Theater, so you would get to be on the stage where Mozart created Don Giovanni and Magic Flute. We'll play there, and then we will take that show on tour to Vienna. And then, if you're in the 4-week program, we then, in the last week, will take that show to Bremen, Germany, to the Bremer Shakespeare Company, which is the oldest Shakespeare company in all of Europe. They just celebrated their 40th year anniversary. And in Vienna and in Bremen, you'll have classes and workshops with these people, these great Shakespearean artists. So touring is an essential part of the winter experience as well. We have one student already who is so insane for Shakespeare. She's doing the winter and the summer. So she will get to go to Austria and Czech Republic and Germany and the UK and Italy and have a wild time. And of course, be happy for anyone to know as well. But that's kind of a broad overview. When you're in Prague, you will live in apartments, you know, with Wi-Fi and washing machines and those kinds of things. So you get the experience of what it's like to be an artist. When you're in the UK and Italy on tour, you'll be in hotels because we're only in places for a few days each day. The other thing is the faculty are part of the shows intensely. So many faculty members are acting with on stage with you. So if we do King Lear, for example, it wouldn't be a cast of 20-year-olds, there would be people of all ages and ranges. And we also have artists from all over the world in the training programs and of all ages. So the variety of the other kind of students you would be with, the other participants, is extraordinary. Now, I will acknowledge I am totally biased, but I created on purpose what I wanted to be the ultimate Shakespeare experience that I never got to have. And that's kind of the basic philosophy, but that I wanted to be rooted in a theater experience. You can also buy, for example, a theater ticket package when you're in the Czech Republic, and you can go see other shows, Shakespeare in Czech, and other productions as well, so you get some of that experience. So that's a very, that's an overview. But have I left anything out? Is there anything you can think of?
Well, so this was the first summer I was designing and teaching. This was my first summer last summer. I've been to Prague. I've been lucky enough to work in Prague quite a bit. And I'm Jon Savage. I teach at Boston University, and I'm a set designer. I do theater and film and television. I teach those. The thing I loved about the program is there's two things. One is in the US, when we get theater wrong, and I think we've all been to that theater, we've all seen that. When we get it wrong, it's because we don't trust the audience. We feel like we have to cross every T, dot every I, inform them totally, because we don't trust that they're going to catch nuance, or they're going to be, we don't trust that they'll be able to go on a journey with us, to take a risk. And that was really difficult to discover because I trained, I went to some of the best training to do this professionally. So I was like, Broadway, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. And then I was lucky enough to have work on my first Broadway show, and I was like, oh, this is not, there's no magic, we're putting a package together. And it wasn't about what we could give to the audience, it was what can we get from the audience, if that makes sense, right? And from a monetary sense. And as I was working in regional theaters, I found that the same way. And in fact, more so in regional theaters, they're choosing plays that are going to make them money because of how their economic situation is set up. So after my third time I did Annie, I was like, there's got to be something, there's got to be a better way to approach this. And one of the the first time I went to Prague, I was a student, and I was asked to. There's an Olympics of theater in Prague called the Prague Quadrennial, and it's literally the whole world comes together for 2 weeks, 10 days, something like that. And you can see theater from all over the world. It's amazing. So I was lucky enough to be. There's a professional theater component and then an educational theater component, and I was lucky enough to design my school's exhibit for that, and that won me an award that paid for me to go to Prague. And the first thing that I realized was when they get it wrong in especially Eastern Europe, it's usually because they don't quite trust the script, but they implicitly trust that the audience is going to go on a journey with them. Whether the audience deems that journey to be life-changing or not, that's up to the audience, but the audience is ready to see Hamlet in 5 different languages, no subtitles, where 8 different characters play Hamlet at one time? 12.
This is a production we did
Yeah,
last year.
yeah. And you as the audience member, you can tell, like, oh, I'm a part of this. There's all of this invitation to say, oh, where's this going? What? Wait a minute, I have to decide who that person is? Wait, I have to do that? And you can feel the whole audience taking that invitation to be like, oh, this is where we're gonna go. This is where we're gonna go on this journey. And I had first saw that as a student 100 years ago when I first went there, and that has always had. That was probably what really led to my disillusionment with like Broadway and regional theater, because that's not why I wanted to do theater anyway. Was to become famous and make money. I wanted to do stuff that I wanted to find as many opportunities to allow profoundness to be a part of my life. And I thought theater was a great vehicle for that, is to have these moments where I'm changed forever, the audience is changed forever, and we have this moment, and the whole universe goes away, and it's just what's happening right there. And that's kind of like crack to me. I just turned down a huge design. I didn't tell my wife about it. She'd be like, what the fuck, we need this money. But it was a Christmas Carol. I'm like, oh, it's a Christmas Carol. I don't want to do that. That's not going to create that, right? So that's I was lucky enough to work with Guy, and the first show I designed, first of all, I didn't know if I was designing a show. Show up to teach. I meet Lisa Volpe, who's one of the preeminent actor and directing Shakespeareans like ever. I met her. She's directing. We're doing an obscure cut that she put together of Two Noble Kinsmen. Who all has seen Two Noble Kinsmen? It's never done, right? I meet her in the first rehearsal. I'm designing as we're doing the first read. I'm texting Josh, the production manager, saying, hey, do you think we could get this? Can we get this by like Friday? And he's like, yeah, no, we're not gonna be able to do that. I'm like, okay, we can't do that. Let's do this. And all within that first day, we have a design. We go forward. The director says, I would really love to if I had another spear carrier. Would you mind being on stage? I'm like, as long as I don't have any lines, I'm fine. So all of a sudden, and now I'm in it. So the day before, I don't know if I'm doing a show. The next day, I'm designing a show, I'm in a show, and I'm also teaching and building and painting and propping and doing all of this stuff. And that was it. I was like, I gotta make this part of my life as much as I can. So the thing that I really love about that intense experience is there are so many moments where if we can all agree that this could be profound, that this could be life-changing, that it can happen. And we can all be in a room and the whole world just melts away and the only thing that's happening is the scene or what's going on. And there's this huge moments of profoundness that is why I started doing theater in the first place. So that's the only thing I would add.
Yeah, and along those lines, one of the things that's very important to me is we blur the lines of, well, there's the actors on one side and the stage managers and the tech people and the designers on the other, and you hang out at different places in the bar afterwards. I really want it to be one company of people who love Shakespeare making it together. And it's a really exciting place. I purposely invite preeminent Shakespeareans from around the world, many of whom wildly disagree about what Shakespeare is. And I think that's really cool because we're going to show you all these different perspectives and ways to think about Shakespeare and Shakespeare in the theater. And out of all of these different perspectives, you're going to find a faculty member or 2 or 3 or 4 that you really jive with, that you're like, yes, I want to do that. And you're going to walk through that door. And someone else will really connect with someone else. And I think that's exciting. Every year, I know the program works because every year we get students who repeat it, who want to do it again. And all of our faculty, they come once and they want to come do it again. Prague's a really special place, and I think we're doing some exciting stuff. Because I'm so fond of Boston University, despite the torture the theater school put me through.
I was not a part of that.
Every BU student gets an automatic $1,000 scholarship, and we're also running a early payment discount now. It's a bit late, you'd have to move quickly. But if you pay by the 30th of November, it's an additional 20% off the summer. If you pay by the 15th of December, it's an additional 15% off. And if you decide you don't have winter plans yet and you want to come to our winter program, we're offering a $2,000 scholarship to that. Because we have some openings, some people said they were coming, we spent a lot of money getting apartments for them, and now they're not coming. So we've got some room there. Yeah?
Do you know Christina DiCarlo?
Yeah, from New York?
She's like a very, like, I grew up with her.
Yeah,
Like,
she was Ophelia for me.
Yeah, and she did the cool dance part of it.
Yeah.
She's like a very, very, very good friend.
Oh,
I just
that's
texted her, like,
That's
I just put
amazing.
it together. I was like, oh right, she did this. I remember I called her about it, and she told me she was doing this really cool Shakespeare thing in Prague, and she was going to Italy now, and she told me how she was dancing as Ophelia, and it made so much sense because she was my dance teacher. I just put it all together. That's why I was on my photos
Oh,
on her
that's
Instagram,
amazing.
and I was like, oh, put it all together just now.
Yeah, she's really sweet. It's a small world, you know.
Well, and I think that's another thing that was really amazing, and I think Guy does a tremendous job with this, is there are, of those 160 students, there's some that may not have as much training as other people, and then there are literally these people that are masters at their craft, and this is a part of their kind of rebirth, as they come back as students. And they're like grown-ass people who've been working, professional working, but this is it. And then in the middle you have like, you know, like Boston University School of Theater students or the equivalent. But there's Guy is able to put everybody in a situation where they can be successful and they can learn from each other. And it was really great to see students that maybe didn't have as much experience come in, and you could see them sheepishly be like, oh, I don't deserve here, and then to be here, and then they start learning the craft, and they start learning like, oh, I can trust the folio. Wait a minute, the whole character's there, the pace is all in the folio. Wait, what does that comma mean? What is it when they capitalize the last letter? Oh, that's the emphasis. And then all of a sudden, they develop all of these mechanics that allows them to participate, and to see their growth is just amazing. It really is great. So whatever level you feel you're at, there is a way for you to find real success in that. It's really really amazing.
What we do is we put people in teams. So we'll have like Team Juliet or Team Rosalind or whatever. And it's usually about either 10 to 15 people per team, and that's who you go to most of your classes with. And they're people who are basically at your level, so you're never in a class with some amazing actor, for example, who's been on Broadway, and you just feel embarrassed to be there. And likewise, if you're at a certain level, you're never at a class with someone who is way behind you as well. What we tend to do with the teams is we try to put a couple people who are at the upper echelon of experience and the lower, so, because you know, like you get better playing tennis with people who are better than you, right? So we try to balance that out as much as we can. And then in the master classes and the electives, you're gonna be with everyone or whoever signs up for those. Yeah. Do you have questions? Is there anything I can answer for you? Yeah.
If I was interested in the program, where would I go to find out
Okay.
more information?
All right, well, first of all, now Ethan, is that your name? Do you have everyone's contact information in here?
I do not, but
I can
No,
get
we
that to
can
you.
fix
I can get
that.
that to
Okay.
you. I got you.
Well, and also I forwarded the flyers that you
Oh, you
sent
did.
to me.
I just saw
sent
that
to
like a
Ethan,
couple
yeah.
minutes ago. I can send that over.
I can add it to our newsletter too.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's some information in these. You can also go to our website, www.pragueshakespeare.org or .com or .cz. It's all the same page. And under education, it's all there. And if you want to apply to the program, you can send me a direct email because there is a different email address for the application, but in the end it gets forwarded to me anyways, and I have to review everybody personally. And if you do apply, when you write an email, you have to do it through email. Say, hi, my name is Ethan, I'm from BU, I met you, I want all those amazing BU scholarships you have to offer. Like, you have to mention it or we just may forget. Like, you've got to flag that, okay? Yeah. What else can I tell you? You had a question?
I just wanted to clarify, do you have to audition to participate?
So we have 2 tracks. We have the standard track, which you do not have to audition. And then we have the advanced track. And the only a lot of the classes are the same. The difference is the advanced track people will be in a special team or section with each other. And those are usually for working professionals or people who have MFAs in performance or design. Just because they have they also have some industry questions and stuff. For example, we get people in our standard track who just love Shakespeare. Like, the idea of a summer in Prague sounds amazing, and I get to do a Shakespeare play, that sounds awesome. But I'm gonna be a lawyer. I'm not gonna be an actor. So they don't need some of those special things. If you would like to be considered for the advanced track, you have to submit a video audition to get in. But anyone else is fine. And one of the requirements of the application process is to write a short statement of purpose, to just say why you want to do it. For you, it'd be easy. I'm part of the Shakespeare Society at BU. I love Shakespeare. You know, Guy talked to us, whatever. It sounds amazing. You don't have to, it's really just when people apply that we don't know anything about. We have to get a sense of who they are and why they like Shakespeare. What else can I tell you? Any other questions?
It feels like such a small world. I can't believe I'm looking at her Instagram right now.
Well,
The video.
talk about a small world. So the world of Shakespeare and especially Shakespeare organizations, that's the one thing I didn't expect. But just from my summer with Guy, I'm working at all of these other theaters because I met those people in Prague, and so it's really, and like Fetty.
Yeah.
Fetty was a student that a performance student at BU School of Theater. I saw him. I knew him just because I teach mainly designers, not performers, but I have some interaction. So I knew him, but I hadn't spent a lot of time with him. Well, I go to Prague. I'm in the back of backstage at the Estates Theater, trying to get ready to load in what we're going to be doing, and this kid just turns around the corner. I'm like, hey. He's like, hey. What are you doing? He's like, yeah, I'm in this touring R&J that's in Arabic and English that I got because he was participating in Prague Shakespeare the year before, and then he went on this. So there's all of this interconnectivity, and for those of us who love theater but maybe don't want to be on stage, that is really a great way to make connections where I'm going to go do dramaturgy. I'm going to work with this director. I'm going to be assistant director. I'm going to do some lighting design. I'm going to connect with this. So it's really this really great point where all of these really great artists are in one spot, and where you can go in any direction, like the connections you're able to make. It's really I'm hooked.
Well, now I'll give you an idea of the first day. So you'll come in at 9 in the morning on the first day, and every student will audition or interview. You each will have about 4 minutes to come in front of all the faculty and give an audition speech, or we'll have an interview for the productions. Then after lunch, I take all the directors to lunch. We cast all the shows. During your afternoon class, we put the cast and the assignments up, and that evening you start rehearsal. So you dive straight in to Shakespeare. It's intense. It's called an intensive for a reason. It's definitely a boot camp, but it's also a lot of fun, and the participants have a great time. Can I tell you anything else, or any other questions you have, either about the program or just Prague or Shakespeare or living in Europe or anything? I'm very happy to answer questions. I have about 10 minutes before I have to walk out the door to go to Boston.
I can also stay here longer, and I know that Ethan and Eli were talking about possibly doing some workshops with, I'm happy to come in and talk to you guys individually and about scenic design or any of that stuff. So we can talk about a little bit of that after Guy wishes out.
I guess because of Christina, I thought it was so cool when she did this of like how much creativity the actors have. Like she's a dancer. I've always known her as a dancer, and so like I remember when she got that part, that was like something that she was like, I feel like I can like dance with it. Like it was a whole conversation that she had, and so I guess I'm just curious of like how much creative liberty do actors have?
Yeah, I would say a lot, because I think by its very nature, theater is a collaborative process. You'll know, we haven't announced the titles yet, but you know, we're gonna do about 15 shows again, so basically we're doing almost half the canon every summer. So you can kind of guess which ones we're doing. And because we have directors from all over the world, all the directors are professional directors. There are no student directors. They are all mega Shakespeareans. So for example, if Christine Schmiedel is a German director who is one of our directors, and now Christine Schmiedel is famous in the Shakespeare world because she has been the text and voice, or the text and verse coach at the Globe on over 60 productions, right? So you know if Christine Schmiedel is your director, it's gonna be about the text, right? We also have a directing team, Kevin Hopkins and Claire Nichols from the Australian Shakespeare Company, that do a lot of heavy movement-based work combined with text work. So you know if you're in their shows, you're gonna be dancing and moving and doing all kinds of movement stuff, and it's gonna be a bit abstract. And you, in your interview or audition, because I think people need to take agency and advocate for themselves. You could say, for example, I'd love to be in a show like Christine Schmiedel's where there's a focus on text. Now, it's not 100% guaranteed you'll do that, you'll get that, but we definitely take that in consideration because we want you to be happy in your show as much as possible. We also want to serve the shows and do what's best for the show, right? So like if you love dancing or movement, you can say, hey, I'd love to be in a movement-based thing. Or you could say, I keep picking on you because you're right in line. You could say, hey, I just performed Juliet. One of the plays we're doing next summer is Romeo and Juliet. I'd love to not be in Romeo and Juliet because I just did it. Or I just did Juliet, I didn't get it right. I'd love to have another shot at it. And we'll listen to what your requests are and we'll try to accommodate them as much as possible. Yeah, you had a question.
I feel like my question is a little bit stupid, and I know, you know,
No
stupid
stupid.
There's only
questions.
stupid people, no stupid.
Did I get that right? What's doing this program like where you don't speak Czech/Italian/whatever?
Oh, I mean, Prague is a super international city. You're in
Yeah.
the center of Prague. Everyone speaks English. The menus and restaurants are in English. You'll be fine. I think if you go to Prague and you learn how to say thank you and excuse me, that's about all you need to know, just to be polite, you know. But it's totally fine. Yeah, the language will not be an issue. And we give all the participants a very detailed welcome packet with like some key phrases and maps and information about doctors and, you know, all the kind of stuff you need for that. So it wouldn't be an issue at all.
And they help set you up with like navigating the public transit system, which is amazing. You'll never be satisfied with any other transit.
It's the best in
when
Europe.
when you
for
get
sure.
back. Yeah, all of that stuff is taken care of. But you're not having your hand held, which I think is also very important.
Yeah.
You're living, you know, you could be living, there could be a group of you living in one part of Prague and another group living in another part, and there's no one making sure you get home, right? You're adults.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit, I think it's a really great mix of you have to have some sort of autonomy with your own personhood to be able to navigate, but there's a lot of
And Prague is, I should be clear, Prague is a super safe city.
Yeah.
It's extremely safe. The crime in Prague is basically pickpocketing. For example, my wife and I have owned a couple bars for many years, and she can walk home at 3 in the morning, and I'm never worried about her. It's a very safe place to be. You had a question?
Yeah, what are the dates that the program runs from usually?
Okay, the summer experience starts on, the UK experience is June 15th through the 22nd. The Prague 6-week program, within which is the 4-week program, is June 23rd through August 2nd, and the Italy tour is August 3rd through the 10th. The winter program is December 16th through either January 3rd or January 11th, or January 4th or January 11th. What else? Yeah.
So I guess I've kind of registered there's a lot of variability, but what would you say is like the age range of people that are like students?
I would say 60% of the participants are between 20 and 24. And then the other, so a lot of them are, most of the people will be your age, around 60, 65% maybe in the summer. And then the others, there won't be anyone really younger, but then you'll get, some people in their 30s or like, I mean, we regularly have people in their 60s do it because they want to get back in touch with Shakespeare, or they're burnt out a little bit of, these are mostly professionals. So, so you definitely would have people your own age from around the world to like go out with and do things. The one thing, because Prague is so permissive, we just ask you to please not do anything that will damage our relationship with the American Embassy, and I have to get you out of jail. That's just all. Anything else is fine. Just please don't get arrested or do anything really dumb. What else? What else can I tell you?
I mean, can we just talk about the price?
Yeah.
How much is it?
Yeah, so but the 4-week program, its tuition is $34.50. The 6-week program is $49.50, and that is the same as our winter program. So the 3 or 4 week program is $34.50, and the 4 or 6 week program is $49.50. Room and board is either $2,400 or $3,000, but you automatically have that $1,000 scholarship, so that takes it down, and that includes all of your meals, your lunch and dinner, 6 days a week. So that's a huge expense. So you have to provide your own meals on 1 day of the week, and if you eat breakfast, a lot of students kind of skip breakfast or just have coffee in our cafe or something. But you have kitchens in your flats for that. If you could go in the winter, the Vienna tour is an extra $400. The Bremer Shakespeare tour is included in the price. The UK trip is total around $4,000, and the Italy trip is total around $4,000 as well. You can pay more money and have a private apartment, or that's a lot more money though. This housing is very expensive in Prague. Or you can pay a little bit more, $500 or $750, and have a private room. All of the housing is sharing a bedroom. The standard housing is sharing a bedroom, separate beds, with someone of the same gender, identifying gender, I don't know all the right words. But we always check and clear roommates with people. If you smoke, we don't put you with a non-smoking roommate, these kinds of things, yeah. What else? Yeah.
If the price is like a complete impossibility with like your current means, would you be able to get help seeking like loans in order to be able to do the program?
Yeah, we're a working theater, so we don't give loans or subsidize anything other than through scholarships. We don't have the means of a university, but you can write us a letter, explain your situation, and we can certainly try to see what's the most scholarships we can offer. I know a ton of students at many universities around the world are able to go to study abroad offices or do independent studies and also get some help financially from their universities. And we also accept credit card payments as well. Anything else? All right, well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, and good luck on Romeo and Juliet. It's a great play. Great play. I'm sorry, I have to take off, but it was great meeting all of you. Please feel free to write me anytime or get in touch with John. And hopefully we'll see you in Europe sometime. Terrific. Bye.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow. 12:30? All right. All right.
Thanks.
Travel safe.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, it's a lot, but actually when you think about it, like a credit at BU is like $4 grand.
Facts.
Yeah, like a class is like $4 grand, I mean, but it is a lot. And I, like most of us, finances are an issue. So that's just one of those realities, right?
My friend Christina, when she had a GoFundMe, I did donate to it, so.
Oh, yeah.
I was like,
Well,
oh, I paid
well,
for this.
and
so I don't
actually,
need
because you have an official club status, right? I don't know if both of you do.
Yeah.
So you can raise funds as a club for this type of thing. And I know that there is Scott, where's Scott? No, Notre Dame. There's a bunch of students that are in similar, where they're in their Shakespeare Society, where they take there was 20 students, and they usually have 20 students that go. They're not studying theater, they're like, you're gonna be making money doing actual things, right? We got one school of theater person over there that's doing it for the love. But that's a possibility. So you could do fundraising. I've actually had with some of my students. I'm also one of the reviewers for the undergraduate research opportunity.
Mm.
This would be something where you could apply for. You can get up to $6,000 in a UROC grant. Usually you'd want to tie it in together with something that if you have a professor. So let's say some of you are studying economics. You could put forward a proposal to study the difference between the economic structure of theater in the U.S. as opposed to the economic theater structure in the Czech Republic. I had a student that applied for that grant, got $6,000. His name was Grant too, which is kind of coincidental. So there's ways to go about it. The only challenge with that is that those things usually take time. So if you miss a deadline, you're like, oh, I guess I'm not going this summer, right? But there are means out there. And BU has its own crowdfunding. Have you guys done that yet? You guys should be doing that for your shows. Just a suggestion. Just a
I will
suggestion.
talk to you about it.
Right?
We've never really had a money problem. We don't pay for rights, everyone else does. Guys, during Shakespeare Things, I want you to know that Devin asked Ellie, how does Shakespeare go about buying rights? and Ellie laughed at him. So cute that you asked
That was
that.
the appropriate response.